Mr. Chairman, friends and colleagues, I am present with you here today, although I am absent physically. Modern technology has gone forward so much that you can be absent present and present absent. I'm very honored and emotionally touched having been invited to speak at this occasion in honor of my dear friend Mordechai Ben-Ari. I could say that our careers in aviation were very much parallel in time. I came in the mid-50s and early 60s. I joined IATA, and we both left in the early 80s, I think. Our first encounter, as I remember it, was in '66 at the so-called traffic conference in Honolulu. As you know, IATA had been given by governments in Chicago the responsibility for negotiating the economic and commercial agreements ruling the airline business, subject to government approval. And this was a time when there was a great discussion about the future of aviation, about the role of charters, about how the scheduled airlines could meet the enormous increasing demand and still cover their costs and probably, hopefully, give some profit in order to renew their equipment. Mordechai was a strong negotiator. He had the responsibility for a very special airline. He had ideas which not always were approved and liked by the aviation establishment. He tried to renew the thinking, and he was a little bit considered as a maverick in an old club of traditional airlines. But gradually, the understanding for his thinking and for his forward planning gained approval, if not approval, at least understanding. And during the years, almost 20 years, of IATA, he developed into one of the wise men of the industry. One problem which very early came into our focus was the problem of terrorism in general, and especially, of course, terrorism against airlines. And here he had the foresight of saying that what happens to one airline may happen to another airline, to any airline in due course. It was a long road to be able to obtain the understanding of all airlines and all governments, or most governments, perhaps one should say, for the need of counteraction. And in the meantime, many things happened which reinforced this development towards a proper response to terrorist action. But, of course, on that road there were many victims. Many airlines were hit by this increasing way of playing politics. But there were also purely criminal incidents, and all this together ultimately led to IATA being able to convince ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization, and a specialized agency of the UN. In fact, ICAO was born before the UN, a couple of months at least, to adopt annex to the Chicago Convention, which dealt with unlawful interference with the civil aviation. As I said, there were many incidents on the road to this final solution, and your country and El Al and the region in general has been very much in that problem. You remember the Algerian hijacking, you remember the Black September, which started with the hijacking of 3 international airlines to the desert airstrip in Jordan. We remember, especially I remember, Mordechai not only for his professional skills, for his great intelligence and ability as a negotiator. He, in fact, was respected and feared by many of his colleagues because he was very persuasive and very much able to reason and to argue in a logical and convincing way. He was, and this I should say here, I think, he was at the same time a great patriot and a great representative for his airline and for his country, but also a world citizen. He traveled very much, he saw people all around the world, he had access to whomever he wanted to see. But this was the one side of Mordechai. The other was him as a very kind man, as a man very proud of his family. We met very often, even after our respective retirements, and talked about his family and his hope for his children, and also about the new problems which occurred in the world. One of them, which we would have to deal with today, and I'm sure we will tackle with great gusto and many positive opinions and ideas, is the problem of the globalization and at the same time fragmentation of our world, which will lead us into the next millennium. And I'm sure that his opinions about the necessity of setting up alliances among airlines in covering the whole world would be very interesting to hear. He was, in fact, a person with whom you could have a sort of continuous dialogue. There could be months, many months between our meetings, but every time it was like continuing a conversation started yesterday evening. And I think there are few friends with whom one can live in that kind of symbiosis and mutual interest, understanding, and also respect, because you didn't, or we didn't, necessarily always have the same opinion. And that, of course, is the interesting part of any dialogue. I'm sure that when we meet again in another world, we will continue our dialogue and our probing of the future, and I'm looking forward to this. Thank you very much.